Hello everyone and welcome to a wonderful game from the Superbet Chess Classic 2025. It's the final round and it's MVL versus Jan-Krzysztof Duda. I thought the mouse froze, but not really. We're just going to dive straight into it, and then we're going to discuss what happened in the tournament and so on. It's a line that we've had quite a few times on the channel already, so pretty standard stuff of the Ruy Lopez, pawn to a6, and now after bishop to a4 we have the classic knight f6, castles, pawn to b5, bishop to b3, and bishop to c5. Thousands and thousands of games in the database, so nothing new. We've seen all of this. d6, pawn to d4, bishop to b6, and now this really cool line with pawn to a4, rook b8, and pawn to a5. And you cannot capture the pawn, and of course everyone knows why you cannot capture with the bishop, but we're still going to show. If you capture with the bishop, then look at this, captures, and now comes queen captures on d8. You cannot capture with the knight, the bishop would hang here, so captures, and now this wonderful bishop d5. So you either lose the knight or the bishop. If captures doesn't really change anything, still the knight is hanging and the bishop is hanging. On the other hand, after a5, bishop to a7, bishop to a7 was played. But if you play bishop captures on a5, then you just sacrifice the exchange right away. And first you trade. No, that's that's with the bishop. But if you capture with the knight, as we've said, then you capture with the rook. So rook captures, bishop captures, and now the same captures on e5, knight captures on e4, and queen to d5, seemingly winning a piece or checkmating your opponent, but not really. Bishop to e6, captures, and now it seems like what is white really doing here? I mean, isn't this just terrible? There's knight d4. And yes, the bishop is hanging. Also, if the bishop moves, then knight to c6 will land, forking the queen, the bishop, and the rook. And that's pretty much it. You will, best you can do is castle, give up the bishop, and then something like bishop to b6, and you have two knights for a rook, and that's it. So after pawn to a5, bishop to a7, again, this is all standard theory. We have pawn to h3, bishop to b7, rook e1, castles, and bishop to e3. E captures, we have c captures, and knight to b4. We have knight to c3, and the bishop captures on e4. And this is where the game really becomes interesting, or rather, two more moves. Knight captures, and there is one game in the database from the US Championship 2022. Dariusz Świercz had it against Christopher Yu, and in that game pawn to d5 was played, which is not the most precise idea. Also, Dariusz lost that game. Here we have rook to c1, which is a top engine move, and it is now as of move 17 that we have a completely new game. So let's see what MVL had in mind. After rook to c8, the idea is pawn to c5, and now look at how masterfully MVL prevents c5 from being played. We have bishop to c2. Again, doesn't look like much. Why wouldn't just black capture? Well, that's the thing. If you want to play c5, you cannot capture, because after captures and queen captures, the knight is hanging, and now either you defend it or you move it, queen to c6, and that's how MVL stops pawn to c5. So we have pawn to d5, and now bishop to b1. He says, all right, I'm gonna save the bishop for later. I mean, it's a beautiful piece controlling the entire diagonal. Queen to d6, and now we have pawn to g3. Support for bishop to f4 once it happens. We have knight to c6 and bishop to f4. Queen to f6, putting pressure on that d4 pawn, and now bishop captures on e4, d captures, and rook captures on e4. We have queen to f5, Duda attacks the e4 rook, and now knight to e5. Again, MVL masterfully sacrifices the exchange, because if the rook is accepted, again, you will not be playing c5. Also, the bishop here is looking very weird. You can defend it, but then the rook is also out of the game. You can play bishop to b8, but that doesn't look like something that's very impressive. And yeah, it's a very passive position for black. Also, you have to worry about knight e7 maybe in some lines. So yeah, not the best. Duda says, I do not want your exchange. Plays knight captures on e5. We have rook captures and queen captures on h3. Even grabs a pawn, but it doesn't matter. Look at this, rook to e7. Again, fighting against c5, as the bishop on a7 would hang. So pawn to h6, we have pawn to d5. Again, this will help in our, well, not in our, in MVL's fight for pawn to c5, but also we the viewers, that we could also say that we are a part of the game. So pawn to g5, we have bishop to e5 and rook c to e8, finally accepting that the pawn will not be moving from c7. And now look at this, another beautiful move, pawn to d6. Now, you could capture and allow d captures on e7, but that's just weird. Also, queen to d8 is coming. That's, I mean, instant resigns. So after pawn to d6, we have c captures, rook captures on a7, and now d captures on e5. Rook captures on a6, and now pawn to e4. And the position is still very, very much playable, but it is extremely dangerous. We have queen to f1, offering a queen trade, as you are now up a pawn, and if you cement it with pawn to b4, you win this pawn. Two connected pass pawns on the queen side should be winning. So queen to g4, we have rook captures on h6, and now pawn to e3. We have queen to d3, and still the position is very much a draw. It is, you know, there's no forced win here. If you play queen to e4, you just have to stop queen h7 by playing queen to e4, and that's it. However, I guess Duda wanted more than a draw. He played a rook to e4, and now do you see what happens? It's a pretty wild maneuver. Have at it, you know, while I give you a couple of seconds. The move is king to g2, and that's it. So now you see the real threat. Yes, we want to double rooks on the h file, but the real threat is pawn to f3. Pawn to f3 just wins material, and that's it. So Duda had to play e captures on f2. We have rook c to h1, and now f1 queen, trying to, you know, prolong the game a little bit. It was a tough game for Duda. He's already down to 3 minutes here. He played f1 queen, brought a queen into the game. King captures, and now queen to f5 with check. We have king to g2, now queen to e5. We have rook to h8 with check. It has to be done. King to g7, and now rook captures on f8. Queen captures on b2, but it is not a problem. King to f3 by MVL. We have rook to d4 attacking the queen, and now there are many ways you can win this, but I'm pretty sure you guys see the fastest one. Rook captures on f7. We have king captures on f7, queen to f5 with check. We have king to e7, and now queen to e5 check. And it was in this position on move 44 that Jan-Krzysztof Duda resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Rook to h7 is coming, or, you know, wherever you put the king, for example, king to f8, rook to h8 check, king to f7, rook to h7 check, and let's say king g6, you go rook g7 check. King to h5, and now just queen captures on g5, and that is a very nice checkmate. So MVL won, and in the final, after 9 rounds have been played of nice classical chess in Superbet Chess Romania, 3 players were on 5.5 points. Maxime, Vachier-Lagrave, Pragnananda, and Alireza Firuza, and all 3 of them went into tie breaks. I think by now they are finished, so, you know, I will also disclose what happened there, but in the next video, if you guys haven't seen it, you know, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it will be either MVL, Pragnananda, or Alireza Firuza. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Random Pawn, Douglas van Bandhuisen, Samuel Kamuli, Marcus Shib, and Nidhi Kumar for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.